Whether thou art a ghost that hath come from the earth, or a phantom of night that hath no home, or one that lieth dead in the desert, or a ghost unburied, or a demon, or a ghoul, whatever thou be until thou art removed, thou shalt find here no water to drink. Thou shalt not stretch forth thy hand to our own. Into our house enter thou not. Through our fence break through thou not. We are protected, though we may be frightened. Our life you may not steal, though we may be scared to death.
Welcome to Scared to Death, Creeps, Peepers, Roberts, and Annabelles. I'm Dan.
Hello, Dan. It's me, Lulu Marie.
You're sticking with that.
Oh, I love it. Will texted me and was like, change my contact info to Lulu Marie.
Ah, that's funny.
Yep, it's the best. Will's our tattoo artist who will be at summer camp with us. So
Will
get your tickets. And
Will XX.
Will XX. Get your tickets and come join us. And join our cult with a tattoo.
You have a scholarship winner to announce, which is exciting, or maybe a few, and then we're off into our stories.
Yes, and I do have 4 scholarship recipients to share the information about. And so it's just so fun to share this every year. This year we had 235 applications started, which alone is awesome. That's such a huge number to have so many fans even consider applying for the scholarship. And then of those 235 applicants, 79 people actually completed it and submitted it. It's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot that has to be done. And in our partnership with Scholarship America, a team of individuals over there reads and reviews the applications. And this allows Dan and I to remain neutral in the awarding process. And so this year we are awarding $20,000 in scholarships. And the recipients are as follows. Alyssa Cramblette.
Yay.
Peyton Hoyt.
Woo.
Josephine Carey.
Yeah.
Taylor Karizma.
Woo!
All right. I love it. Proud dad over there. Congrats to each and every one of you who applied. It's a ton of work, and we're just super proud of you for doing it regardless of the outcome. And to our 4 recipients, congratulations. They'll each be receiving $5,000 towards their education. And since the inception of the Cummins Family Scholarship Fund, we have given away over $50,000 in scholarship funds.
That's awesome.
And all of this is only possible because of our patrons who, give every month. And it's just an incredible thing. And just as a reminder, because I know the question's going to come, the scholarship fund happens on a yearly basis, so make sure you stay tuned to all of the shows for announcements and reminders about it. And generally speaking, the application process will open again in the first quarter of the year.
Awesome.
Okay, that's it.
Educated world is a better world. That's great.
Could not agree more.
Okay, so how many allegedly true paranormal horror stories have you selected for us from those submitted to my story at scaredtodeathpodcast.com, Lulu Marie?
1, 2, 3.
Nice.
I have 3. Yeah, so my first story, we are going to learn about the house next door to a house. And it's a strange story and has some great twists and turns, and I love the ending.
Yeah.
Then, in my second tale, there's more people than you think in a taxi cab. And so that's fun.
Haven't had one of those in a while.
Yep, I do really like those. And then finally, my last tale takes us to someone's grandma's house where a creepy visitor is hanging out.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
The 2 I have found have creeped me out more than anything else I've shared in several weeks. I hope you and all of our creeps and peepers are equally unsettled by them. The first is a story of a North Carolina man who tried to transform into an actual demon, and some think he was in a way successful. He definitely changed his name to Pazuzu Illa Algarad, and I'll share what that is later. He changed his appearance, but did something else actually change his soul? My second tale is a story of some of the residents of a housing development outside of Houston, Texas, built on a forgotten cemetery, who claim the spirits of those whose remains were disrespected were both awakened and angered by the destruction of their final resting place, and now the area is very cursed.
Okay.
Lots of intense paranormal activity and some real life stuff in this one. What spoopy socks are you wearing to feel safe and cozy and ready for horror this week?
I love these socks. They're super fun.
Yeah.
They're like black and turquoise psychedelic swirls from our friends over at Weed Maps.
Yes, and I got some shoes from them as well. I have to thank them. I got a cool coffee table book.
I know,
I have
the book
to thank
is
the people
sick.
at Weed Maps. Weed Maps, Weed Maps, Weed Maps.
This episode is not sponsored by them, but we're fans of what they do.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Now for a story that blurs the line between very disturbing true crime and something possibly more sinister. A story about a man whose descent into depravity seemed almost inhuman, whose very name became synonymous with evil, a man whose home was said to reek of filth and death, whose eyes some claimed were not entirely his own, and who others believe may have summoned something from beyond our world that pushed him to do the terrible things he did. Time now for the tale of the Lord of the Locusts. To understand Pazuzu Algarad, you have to start beginning to know who he was before. A seemingly normal kid by the name of John Alexander Lawson. Born in 1978 in San Francisco, California, young John was raised in relative normalcy. After moving to North Carolina with his mother Cynthia, who was from North Carolina, when he was only still a toddler, John grew up in the quiet but quickly growing suburb of Clemens, about 15 minutes outside of Winston-Salem, a fast-growing, thriving municipality that has quadrupled in size since John moved there. Cynthia eventually remarried to a man named Johnny, and little John and his new stepdad of the same name did not get along. And this is thought to have led to young John becoming more and more reclusive and angry. Former neighbors have described John as having been odd, quiet, maybe even disturbed growing up, but not necessarily as being dangerous. He struggled in school, repeating both the 2nd and the 9th grades, before he then dropped out entirely. Before he left school, he also frequently fought with other students and had a reputation for being defiant and verbally disrespectful towards his teachers. He became wildly antisocial by the time he was in his mid-teens and started to hate pretty much everyone. He hated the world and damn near everything in it, and this hatred led to a shocking transformation. At some point in his 20s, John Lawson, whose teenage interest in the occult became an obsession, legally changed his name to Pazuzu Illa Algarad. His first name, Pazuzu, is the name of an ancient Mesopotamian demon of famine, disease, and pestilence. It's a name that was well known to the Babylonians and Assyrians throughout the first millennium BCE, a demon typically portrayed as having a canine-like monstrous face, with abnormally bulging eyes, a scaly body, a snake-headed penis, and the talons and wings of a hawk. You may recognize the monster's name from both the book and the film The Exorcist, the ancient demon who possesses young Regan McNeil. John's new surname, Illa Algarad, means the Lord of the Locusts in Arabic. So John now saw himself as a demon of famine, disease, and pestilence, a Lord of Locusts. Someone who wanted to destroy, someone who wanted to turn the world around him into filth, misery, and ruin. And John's new name quickly became his entire identity. The child who many thought was odd became a young man who many thought was frightening. He stopped caring about his hygiene. Friends said he began to believe that he drew some kind of dark power from living in filth and rot. He filed his teeth into sharp points. He tattooed his face with dark, occult sigils, sometimes spoke in tongues, literally barked at neighbors, and openly claimed to be a Satanist. Other tattoos across his body said things like Lucifer, Satan, Villain, 666, Joker, and Live Fast and Die. He began to tell people that he was demonically possessed, that he had supernatural abilities, that his soul belonged to something, quote, older than time. His home became a place where anything went. You could say anything, do any drug, defile yourself in any way, defecate onto the floor, masturbate in full view of anyone present, put knives into the walls, and people did all of these things. Orgies were held between people whacked out on meth who hadn't bathed in weeks, and Pazuzu loved it all. The more depraved, the better for the Lord of the Locusts. Some people thought he was doing all of this, changing his appearance, living like he lived, saying what he said, simply for shock value. Maybe shock value he leaned towards due to legit mental illness. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, agoraphobia, and depression. He also drank a lot and frequently was high on meth. Others thought it was much more than mental illness, drug abuse, and antisocial tendencies. They wondered if maybe something paranormal was going on as well, if that was the true source of Pazuzu's deviancy. They wondered if he had actually summoned something he thought he could control, but was in fact controlling him, changing him, and destroying him. His home on Nob Hill Drive became a nightmare. The walls were covered in spray-painted satanic graffiti. Animal bones and feces from both dogs and humans littered the floors. There were blood stains all over the place. Outside of the house, a letter warded off law enforcement. A cross hung upside down, and a sticker carried a grim promise: evil will triumph. All omens of what truly lay inside. Neighbors said the stench coming from inside the house was foul, pungent, and hard to describe. An unpleasant and upsetting mixture of blood, rot, and sulfur. Locals whispered that Pazuzu began to drink animal blood regularly, and then human blood as well. That he killed various small creatures in the home in satanic rituals. Others soon spoke of human sacrifice. Some said that if you weren't careful and you let your guard down around him, that he could control your mind. A few witnesses claimed that they personally saw him drinking blood straight from the necks of girls he held a strange cult leader-like power over. And then came the murders that definitely happened and for sure were not just rumors spread by gossipy locals, curious about the strange young man who seemed to represent the opposite of everything they loved and held dear. In 2010, Pazuzu was charged as an accessory after the fact in the murder of a local man named Joseph Chandler, who had been shot to death after allowing a friend who had committed that murder to hide inside his home. In 2012, he would be convicted of this crime. But he wouldn't serve any real time, sentenced to only 10 to 12 months, and he would quickly be released on 5 years probation. And then during this probationary period, 4 years later, more dead bodies would be connected to the man with the demon's name and appearance. In 2014, police were tipped off by someone close to Pazuzu, something about a body, maybe two, buried in the backyard of his now infamous Nob Hill house. When police arrived, they found what they were looking for. The remains of two men, both missing since 2009, Joshua Frederick Wetzler and Tommy Dean Welch. Both had been shot and buried just feet from the home where Pazuzu and his girlfriend Amber Birch lived amongst the filth and the rot. Amber quickly confessed to killing Tommy. Pazuzu, it was said, had killed Joshua. But what truly horrified police wasn't just the bodies, it was the atmosphere. Officers described the home as, quote, hellish. Walls were covered in messages written to the devil, occult books and broken Ouija boards were scattered about. Strange ritual tools officers couldn't make sense of were everywhere. Animal cages, dark bloodstains on the floor, all kinds of bones. And then unsettling stories started to leak out about what life was really like in this hellish home. Former acquaintances, drifters, addicts, outcasts came forward with accounts of being lured into the house, given drugs, and forced to participate in bizarre rituals. Most described just animal sacrifices. Others hinted at worse. One man claimed Pazuzu truly believed he was a hybrid of man and demon, that he had blackouts where something else took control, that he often told people he was just a vessel. Another woman who dated Pazuzu briefly said his eyes changed when he got angry, like a dead animal, she said, like there was nothing human behind them. Not rage, not madness, just emptiness. Was he actually demonically possessed? It's a question that's haunted his case. One former friend, who never gave their name to the media, said that during a party in 2012, Pazuzu claimed he was going to, quote, call something up. The friend assumed it was just drug-fueled theatrics. But then according to their account, he cut open a bird, a live one, right there in front of us. No one stopped him. He had this weird bowl. I think it was made from a human skull. He bled the bird into it and started chanting. Not in English, not in anything I recognized. And then the lights went out, and I swear to God, the shadows in the room started to move, like they were alive. It still scares the shit out of me whenever I think about it. He did call something up. We all saw it. Another guest at the same party later told a similar story, but added something chilling. Everyone got so quiet, like we were all frozen. I couldn't move. I felt like something was watching us through Pazuzu, like he wasn't alone inside his body. All of a sudden, all these images were in my head, images of people being hurt, being killed. And then it felt like something was pushing its way inside of me, something that wanted me to do all the things I was thinking about. It's so hard to explain. After his arrest in 2014, Pazuzu was placed in Central Prison in Raleigh, but he'd never make it to his trial. In 2015, he died by suicide, his body found in his cell with a deep wound to his arm where he'd bled out. Whether he bled out accidentally or intentionally remains unclear, as he did like to drink blood. But still today, some people say, whatever was in him never really died. And that brings us to the final part of the story. The following account was posted anonymously about Pazuzu Algarad in a now deleted post about Pazuzu on Reddit in 2021. The author claimed to have been part of his inner circle back in 2008 when he was just 17, or she was just 17. Her post was up for less than 24 hours before it vanished, and the archive version then showed up on a paranormal site. The user refused to give her name or location, citing fears that one of Pazuzu's old followers, or worse, Pazuzu himself, could still somehow harm her, even though again he had died in 2015. She wrote, I'm writing this because I can't keep it inside anymore. I don't care if people think I'm lying. I wish I was. I met Pazuzu when I was 17. I was messed up, bad home life, using a lot. I ended up at one of his parties. The house was already foul then. The walls were black with spray paint, weird sigils, pentagrams, Latin phrases, smelled like dead rats and bleach, and people just accepted it. The night that changed everything was in October. I think it was 2008. He said it was a real ritual, not for show, not for drugs. I remember his exact words. Tonight, something crosses over. There were 7 of us, 2 girls, 5 guys, all high, but lucid enough to know what we were seeing. He brought out a kid. I swear to God. I think he was maybe 19, but he looked younger. He'd been staying there for a few weeks. He looked fragile and scared. I swear we didn't know what was going to happen to him. We thought maybe he was going to have some weird initiation. But Pazuzu slit his throat. No warning, no hesitation, he just did it. And blood sprayed across the floor. No one screamed, we couldn't. It was like our voices were stuck in our throats. Everyone just froze. And one of the other girls pissed herself. Then he started chanting. I don't know what language it was. He started drawing symbols in the blood, not pentagrams. Something he said later was older, twisted, like spirals folding in on themselves. I swear they moved on their own. Then the room got cold. I mean freezing. Our breath came out in little clouds, and the shadows in the corners got darker. And that's when I saw it. There was something else in the room with us. Something tall and thin, black like burned bone. It had eyes like coals. It didn't walk. Crawled like a spider. Its face was a skull, but wrong, too long, too many teeth. Pazuzu fell backwards, convulsing. Then he was laughing, then he was crying. His eyes rolled back into his head, his mouth opened too wide, like something was trying to push its way out. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And then the boy's body was gone when we looked back. Totally vanished. Not even blood remained. That's when I just started running. I don't remember getting home. I don't remember much in the weeks that came after that, just little flashes. Worrying that something was watching me and following me. Finally, that feeling went away. But then years later, after Pazuzu died, I started to feel it again. And now sometimes at night, when I'm in bed, I'll hear something knock on the window. It always knocks 3 times, exactly. And it's him. I know it is. I think he wants me to let him in. And I'm afraid that if I ever answer his call and he does come in, I'll disappear like that boy did. Pazuzu wasn't just some guy who had mental problems. He did too many drugs. He opened some kind of door. And I don't think it's ever been closed. We may never know whether Pazuzu Algarad was merely a sick, manipulative, murderous psychopath, or something darker. His crimes were real, the house was real, the dead bodies were very real, but what else was real? He was trying to summon demons. Did he ever pull it off? Why do so many claim to have felt something unnatural around him? What did people actually see? Drug-induced hallucinations? Or did something ancient and evil crawl into our world through the broken mind of a man who called himself a demon?
What the fuck?
Isn't that an intense story?
I am just so hung up on this party with this real ritual, and then
Yeah.
that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you would do?
Oh, man. I mean, if I was a teenager and I was like, troubled teen, all that, I mean, I'd be scared out of my mind.
Yeah, no wonder the other girl pissed her pants.
Uh-huh.
I think that's exactly, I believe that I would have the same reaction, just shock, fear, and then after like sort of kind of snapping to, running for my life.
Just turning and just running and running. Oh my God. That would fuck you up.
Forever.
Yep. On some level to see that.
Forever.
Ooh,
I'm so curious what his mom would say. Like
Cynthia James, the John's mom.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, just removing all emotion and just trying to look at this through a analytical lens. Okay.
Yeah.
Some people, we believe people are sometimes just born bad, born evil.
Right.
Nurture, okay, in the situation.
Yeah.
People said he was odd, but then it sounds like odd but not scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then mom remarries, and that seems to be like this pivotal moment.
Yeah.
That changes him. And I'm so curious if she gave interviews, if she would say, I'm not surprised. And I saw inklings of this in my child long before I remarried, or I'm not blaming her, by the way. I'm just so no one that could know him more intimately than his mother, and then have noted the way that he changed before he started the physical changes and living a different life.
Yeah, it's a wild transformation. I'll show you some pictures, and then we can just keep talking.
Yeah.
But you'll be like, oh my gosh. Okay, so here, this first one is a picture of young John Alexander Lawson with his mom, Cynthia James.
Yeah, just like a totally cute, happy-go-lucky little mom and son.
Yeah, like just completely look like suburban kid in the 90s.
Totally.
Kind of thing. This photo comes from myfox8.com. And actually, I said 90s. I don't know when he grew up, now that I'm saying that.
That looks like 80s, 90s, yeah.
Yeah, it does look like it. I think oh my gosh, it's just going to drive me crazy. Where did this story start?
In what, 2015, and he was in his 20s?
Born in 1970. So so he's my age. Okay, yeah, so that's totally, exactly. That's from the 90s. Okay, and then this next one is a picture of John after he had moved out into his place of filth, which it does sound like either he or his mom owned it. This house he was living in, not with his mom. But like,
obviously.
Yeah, obviously. But like this house, I don't know if she bought it for him. I don't know if he worked. I don't know what went on there. But here's his look.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, that is Pazuzu Illa Algarad. That's from that'sinteresting.com.
It's just like, I actually was thinking it was going to be more severe.
He does look in his mugshot. This next one, he looks more hardcore.
Yeah.
And this is a side-by-side with him, like, again, like young teen in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then after he goes to prison, that's from that'sinteresting.com as well.
You can just see in the previous photo before the side-by-side, it's like, my opinion would be that you can just see how lost and sad.
Yeah.
Like, and
angry.
It feels like a bit of a front, even.
Oh, yeah.
Like if somebody really could reach him and help him. But then you get to this side by side and it feels like no return.
Yeah. I mean, most people, I feel like in these they're just very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
And then that sensitivity turns to rage.
Well, and he was diagnosed with real mental,
very
serious, real mental illness.
Absolutely.
Very serious.
And he's doing meth and he's,
which is exacerbating, like
exactly.
We have a friend whose brother unfortunately passed away this year, but he's schizophrenic and like was so sweet always until he wasn't.
Yep.
And then, it took just a lot of care and medication but so sensitive.
Yeah.
Like, and thought, like squirrels were talking to him. And his little characters, like he loved dolls and he thought that they were alive. And I mean, what a challenging place to be, to live through that lens, but then to kind of snap to and be like, oh, that's my sister.
Totally.
Yeah. Really. So this poor individual.
This next one, a picture of the door to Pazuzu's home from myfox8.com. And you can see like there's a little
it looks
sticker.
Like crazy Halloween decorations.
That little like evil will triumph sticker by the door handle below. And
yeah, out of context, you would just think like, oh, those are great Halloween. Like, ooh,
totally.
I'm scared. But with the story with it, you're like, oh.
Exactly. It was more than like a Halloween decoration. Yeah.
Don't want to go in there.
Next one, a photo from the home's basement showing how filthy it was. There was some in like the living room, but they were just so poor quality. They were too blurry.
Oh, the photos, I see.
The photos, yeah. But you can just see like, just trash everywhere. There was photos I found too. People were like, when they went to like clear out the home and like explore for evidence of other crimes, I mean, they're wearing hazmat suits.
Wow.
This next one, this is...
Oh, so they demolished the house.
Yep, exactly. This is a photo of the home being demolished in 2015. Neighbors watching this when the first wall fell just erupted into cheers.
I mean... The thing about a home like this in your neighborhood, I mean, just based on this one photo, I'm guessing that it's just like a very normal suburban.
Absolutely.
Right? So like I don't even want to say like what class of home. Like, I don't know if it's like upper middle class, whatever.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Like blue collar neighborhood, I think.
Yeah. And regardless of what kind of neighborhood it is, if you own a home, you have scraped and saved and begged and borrowed. You know what I mean? Like you have done everything just like any American does, to buy a home and to then have this monstrosity.
Where you like, it reeked so bad. I mean, you would just smell it constantly.
Yeah. And just like the whole time, I just imagine thinking like, well, there goes my savings plan. There goes my retirement plan. Like that's the thing that we work so hard for in this country is to have a home because we count on that as part of our retirement. No wonder they erupted into.
Yep, people tweaked out and stuff, coming in and out of there, all hours of the night.
Yeah, of course they erupted into cheers.
Right,
I would too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oof.
Oof.
That is rough and heavy.
Anything else to discuss regarding the Lord of the Locusts?
No, just I think that it's like, again, and I know we've said this 100 million times on this show, but the way it does feel like there was something demonic going on here. It does feel like there was like this paranormal element to it. And
on top of everything else.
Yeah. And so what we've said 1,000 times here is like, it oftentimes feels like negative spirits, negative energy, demonic spirits, they find their way to the most fragile, the most vulnerable, and then take advantage of that. So it's like, in this situation, we know sometimes we're speculating whether or not there was mental illness. In this situation, we know. And then it just feels like, God, it's just like kicking somebody when they're down. Salt in the wound, whatever cliche little phrase you want to use.
Yep.
But it's just like, God.
Absolutely.
But I think that there was something crazy going on there beyond mental illness.
Yeah,
that
story really creeped me out.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's a new house built on that site.
Probably.
I would love to know what.
Ooh, yeah. What
I bet that is a haunted house.
Well, this next story deals with what was underneath, is underneath the homes.
Okay, well, let's check that out.
Mm-hmm. Now for another wild one. It's got old graves, a literal curse, so many reports of apparitions, and an entire Texas neighborhood built on top of it all. Time now for the tale of the Black Hope Curse. In the early 1980s, outside of Houston, Texas, less than a mile outside of the rural census-designated community of Crosby, which is located about 26 miles northeast of downtown Houston, a housing development called Newport was still being built after ground had first broken in 1972. It was full of freshly paved streets, brand new housing, white picket fences, and big nice green lawns. It looked to so many wanting to live there like the embodiment of the classic all-American dream. What no one moving there seemed to know, though, until it was far too late at least, was that part of the development had been built directly over an old, unmarked cemetery. And not just any cemetery, but a burial ground for dozens of former slaves and their descendants. People disrespected in death after lives full of almost nothing but disrespect and pain. Locals who knew the history, they called it the Black Hope Cemetery. According to the lore, in the early and mid-1800s, the McKinney family had owned a plantation where the Newport development now stands. They'd also owned a large number of slaves who worked the plantation for them. And when slavery ended in Texas, the McKinney family gave a portion of their land to the newly freed slaves for them to create a new home for themselves. And this land became known as Black Hope. The citizens of Black Hope built themselves a church, a school, homes, and a cemetery. More than that, they built a community, and the community continued on for decades until it was destroyed by fire, a fire that very well may have been deliberately set. And when it was done burning, all that remained was a cemetery. And when the Newport development was built decades later, dozens and dozens of remains from the 1800s were never moved, or even acknowledged. Up to 60 graves, some say, and none of them were respectfully reinterred. They were just built over, or even worse, unceremoniously tossed aside, thrown away when remains were discovered while excavating for the home's foundations, or when installing pipes for sewage, gas, or water led to uncovering them. It's hard to say exactly how many remain now because no records were kept. In most cases, the only markers of the graves were wooden crosses or simple stones, long gone by the time developers came in with their bulldozers. Most of the construction workers, of course, learned what the hell was going on, or at least had their suspicions. But no one said anything, not officially. There was too much money on the line. But then, what they had done was finally exposed when Judith and Sam Haney moved in. In 1982, the couple bought a new home in Newport. It was quiet, affordable, and a great place to retire. They'd worked hard for decades, and this was going to be their dream home. And in line with that dream, they decided to dig a big family pool. And during their excavation, a backhoe hit something. Something hard, something wooden. The workers soon unearthed 2 coffins, both, of course, with human remains inside. Can you imagine finding that in your backyard? Horrified, the Haneys contacted local authorities and also began their own investigation into the history of the area. County records eventually confirmed that their backyard had been part of a forgotten slave cemetery last used in the early 1900s. The 2 people buried beneath their home, Charlie and Betty Thomas, a married couple and the children of slaves. They also had relatives buried in the same cemetery. The Haneys did their best to be respectful. They paid to have the Thomases' coffins reburied and said funeral prayers. They even put up small markers out of reverence. But it seems as if the spirits of the restless dead were not appeased, because soon after that, things started to change, and their home became a mess of bizarre, unexplained phenomena. Toilets would start to flush on their own. Lights flickered on and off, even after they brought in an electrician and had their home rewired. The air inside their home now felt thick, like it carried something inside it. Life began to get very, very strange overall for the couple. Judith said, "There was a clock in my bedroom, and one night it started sparking and putting out a sort of blue glow. When Judith checked the clock, she found it was unplugged. On another evening, Sam went to work the night shift, leaving Judith alone. Judith claimed she was visited by a spirit that same evening. She said, I heard the sliding glass door open, and I heard what I thought was Sam saying, 'What are you doing?' Everything was quiet. The sliding glass doors were locked, and I thought, well, you must be losing your mind. This really must be getting to you. But much to my amazement, that's not where the story ended. In the morning I awoke, went in my closet to get my red shoes, and I could not find them anywhere. When Sam came home, Judith, of course, told him what had happened, and this is what he said happened next. So, of course, I started looking for them and went through all of her closets where she normally puts things, and we just couldn't find them. We had walked just a short distance from where the grave sites were, and I could see something on the grave. They were the red shoes, and they were both side by side, as if someone had just picked them up, carried them over, and laid them down on the gravesite. This gave Sam the chills, and then he got them all over again when he discovered that this happened on Betty Thomas's birthday. He said, and I kind of got the feeling that it was like Charlie was giving Betty a birthday present. This would not be the couple's only encounter with a ghost. Judith would describe seeing shadowy figures standing in their hallway or watching her from open doorways. And she and Sam both then claimed to begin hearing unnerving whispers at night. Sam would cautiously, quietly get out of their bed, grab a weapon, and search for the source of the sound, fearing an intruder had broken into their home. But no one was ever there. They also stopped using the back door to go into the backyard. It kept opening on its own. Sam swore he once watched it slowly open on its own while he was watching TV when there was no breeze. Other times he said it would creak, sounding as if it were opening, even though it was tightly shut and locked. And then Judith started having dreams. The same nightmare, over and over. In it, she would find herself standing in her backyard in the dead of night, staring down at the earth beneath her feet. She'd feel scared, but not understand why. What was she staring at? Why was she outside? And then, something just beneath the surface would start to reach up through the soil. Something dead but not resting. She'd start to scream and then wake up. By this point, Judith said, I was crying all the time. I was frightened. I was scared of doing my daily routine in my own home. And now the couple no longer wanted to live in the house that was supposed to be their dream home, but had become a nightmare. They'd been tricked. They were being punished for mistakes they hadn't made. So they decided to file a lawsuit. The Haneys sued the developer, claiming they had never been informed about the cemetery. Their case would make its way into the national news. But they would lose it, and in such a painful fashion. A jury initially awarded them $142,000 for mental anguish. But then a reversal ruled on legal grounds that the developers were not liable. The graves they hadn't been informed of, according to the court, had not legally existed by the time their home had been built, and therefore the developer was under no legal obligation to tell them about them. The original verdict was thrown out, and the Haneys were now not only not awarded that $142,000, they were ordered to pay $50,000 in court costs. Devastated, terrified, and financially ruined, the Haneys moved out, declared bankruptcy, and had to start their lives over, right when they'd made it to the age when they should have been able to start enjoying their retirements. And then after they'd left, things in the neighborhood they had walked away from got even worse for those who stayed. A dozen of their neighbors would report lights, televisions, and water faucets turning on and off, unearthly sounds, and supernatural apparitions who felt malevolent in nature. One of those neighbors, or one set, was the Williams family. Like the Haneys, Ben and Jean Williams thought that they had found their suburban paradise when they moved into the same neighborhood. But Jean said she never felt at peace in the house. After we moved in, she said, everything changed. When I tried to plant new plants, they just would not live no matter what I did. Fertilizer or whatever, they still would not live. And I constantly had a foreboding feeling, a feeling of things are not right or something bad is about to happen. The Williams said that near their flower beds, sinkholes appeared in the unmistakable shape of a coffin. The Williams would fill them in, only to have them reappear a few days later. The Williams also felt their ideal home was being invaded by a menacing presence. Random shadows slid along the walls, followed by whispered words and a putrid smell. At the time, the Williams' granddaughter, Carey, lived with the couple, and during the blazing heat of the summer, Carey claimed she would stumble into bone-chilling pockets of ice-cold air. She later said, "It would be very, very chilly, and you'd have this feeling of foreboding or just, like something wasn't right. Anywhere in the house, you'd have a feeling that you were not alone. Somebody was watching you. It terrified me to be in the house by myself. The toilets used to flush on their own. As the water went down, I could hear, it was almost like conversations. You could hear people murmuring to themselves. It was a presence or spirit or something there. Something that wanted to be heard, wanted me to know that it was there." Jean Williams had no doubt as to the source of the disturbances. "I absolutely believe," she said, "that all of these things happened to us because we were on the graveyard, and that we were simply going to be tormented until we left there." Ben said he and Jean debated on what to do next. "Me and Jean, we talked it over," he said, "and she said, 'Well, what can we do? Walk off and leave it?' She said, 'We ain't got enough money to pay down on another home.' I said, 'We've always been fighters. We're going to stay right here and fight it and try to beat it.'" According to Ben, it wasn't long before he got his chance. "I came home from work around 10 after 12 from the midnight shift, and I walked straight to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator door, and that's when I seen these two ghostly figures. And then they went straight backwards into the den, and they started heading right down the hall to Jean. And it was standing right about 1.5 feet from the end of the bed. The only thing I really thought of was, they ain't messing with my wife. And I dove through it. I felt a sticky cold sensation in my body." After that terrifyingly intense paranormal experience, the Williams still were not quite ready to move out, but they soon would be. Jean wanted to try and find the bodies beneath their property, hoping that if she respectfully reburied the remains, the haunting would be over. But soon after she started digging, she began to feel ill. And now her adult daughter, Tina, volunteered to finish the job. But after only digging for about a half an hour, Tina also fell ill. Jean's granddaughter, Carey, was there that day, and she'd say, "I remember her saying that she felt funny. She was getting dizzy as well. She put the shovel down, and she went back inside, and she just laid down on the couch. She's like, 'Mom, Daddy, I don't feel right. There's something wrong.' The last thing I remember her saying was, 'Mommy, take care of my baby, and she looked so scared." While waiting for paramedics to arrive, Jean tried to keep her daughter conscious. Almost immediately, her eyes started glazing over, she said, and I was talking to her, trying to talk her out of dying. "Please, Tina, talk to me." And all this time, her eyes were changing until they got to the point where I knew that she wasn't responding at all. Tina had suffered a massive heart attack, and 2 days later, she was dead. Jean burdened the blame. She said, "I realized that I had desecrated another grave, and now I'm paying. I told Ben, we have to get out of here. It doesn't matter what we lose, what we had. And I knew that if we didn't, that I was not going to make it, because my fight was gone. I couldn't fight anymore." The Williams escaped to Montana, where they would no longer be plagued by mysterious noises, horrific apparitions, or heartbreaking tragedies. After the Williams left and the years passed, more and more homeowners in Newport began to report strange activity. One woman described waking in the night to see a man standing at the foot of her bed, his mouth open in a frozen scream, but no sound was coming out. He vanished when she turned on the lamp next to her bed. Another family said that their daughter began to sleepwalk, and that they found her in the yard one night, digging in the grass with her bare hands, mumbling, "They're still down there. They're waiting." A retired veteran 2 blocks over reported dreams of funerals, dozens of them, held under streetlights attended by no one, with coffins that sank into the ground and vanished. Several homeowners later discovered pieces of grave markers buried in their flower beds. And now more and more people began to talk not only of a haunting, but of a curse. The legend of the Black Hope curse grew and grew until eventually it caught the attention of one of the producers of Unsolved Mysteries, which aired a story about it in the summer of 2001. The episode brought national attention to this story, but did nothing to stop the paranormal activity. 2 decades after that story aired, some homes in the area were reportedly just as haunted as ever. "We moved in during the pandemic," posted a woman identifying herself only as Shannon in 2022. "We bought a real nice house outside of Houston, and we didn't know the history until it was too late." Shannon said that she and her husband Chris moved into the development in early 2021. She said that for the first few weeks, life in the house felt normal, but then the smell started. It wasn't constant, but that on and off during all hours of the day and night, but typically at night, an odor like wet dirt, rotting wood, and decay would drift in through the hallway. And she and Chris could not determine the source. Next came the dreams. Shannon began to dream of a young girl standing at the foot of her bed. The girl wore an old-fashioned white dress and kept asking, "Why are you in my house?" Shannon did a little poking around online and came across much of what I've already shared. And now she worried that her house was haunted. She shared what she found with her husband Chris, who tried to brush it all off until he heard footsteps that sounded like they were coming from the attic, except they didn't have an attic. Then they began to have some electrical issues, scary ones like the oven turning on all by itself on multiple occasions, more than once happening at night while they were asleep. Their doorbell rang around 3 a.m. on at least 3 occasions, but when Chris got up and ran out to check, no one was outside. The faucet in the guest bathroom started to turn on by itself. Both Shannon and Chris heard it turn on when no one was in the bathroom, and Shannon claimed to have actually watched it turn on with no one touching it on another occasion. Much creepier, one evening Shannon reportedly found muddy handprints on the inside of the glass shower door, even though she hadn't used the bathroom. And then the digging started. Chris opened the crawlspace hatch one afternoon to check some wiring, and he quickly saw that there was dirt inside that had been disturbed, dug up, he described it. He was overcome with this crazy feeling that something that had been buried had dug its way up and out. The very next night, Shannon woke up to find Chris standing at the foot of their bed facing the window. He was asleep, and he was talking. "They didn't move them," he said. "They just built on top. We're in the middle of it now." She grabbed him. He screamed like he'd been shocked awake out of a nightmare. Later that same night, they claimed to have heard the sound of someone sobbing in the living room. They both got up, walked towards the sound, and found muddy footprints only in the center of the room. Footprints that did not connect to the door, didn't lead out of the room in any way, shape, or form. It was as if someone with muddy feet had materialized in the center of the room and then vanished. And that was it. They were done. They started packing that same night. And I don't know what's happened to them since, but I imagine, based on what we've learned, that the spirits of the former Black Hope Cemetery are as restless as ever.
Oh my God.
These are intense stories, right?
Oh my God. Okay, this Black Hope. Holy crap. Okay, I did make a note.
Yeah.
That when we move,
Yeah.
we got to do if we, you and me, of all people,
We gotta do some investigations.
if we move into a haunted house, we're fucking idiots.
That's
like
funny.
that is entirely on us. We should know better.
Yeah.
306 weeks of stories in. If we don't know better, there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And some haunted house will probably try to draw us in after all this.
Okay, well, fans, listen, if Dan and I move, we'll just be, we'll be sure to do a lot of research and, we'll be asking like, hey, does anybody know about this house? Can you imagine? I do think that it is so crazy that when we buy houses, that we don't get to like spend a night in the house before. I mean, it would be so weird, like, because generally you're buying a house that's currently occupied. It's very rare that you're buying an unoccupied house.
Right, and even if it's unoccupied, it's not going to be furnished. I I guess you can bring sleeping bags.
Well, yeah, you could do a one night,
gotcha.
And it'd be like, okay, how's it feel?
That's true.
But it is, because think about it. We test drive cars.
Yeah, that is funny.
Right? How do we test drive a house? You generally walk through it once.
Yeah, you spend like half an hour in it.
And you're like, okay, yeah, no, seems good.
That's true. That is weird.
It's preposterous.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we got a lot of investigating wherever we go next. Also, I am so mad at the developer. I'm so mad. They sound like money-grubbing motherfuckers. I'm so angry. It's like, really? You couldn't just pay out the $142 and let this couple just get on with their lives? And I get it. If that happens,
that's
then,
why.
Yep, then the whole neighborhood.
Yep. Class action, and they're done.
And they're done. But also, fuck you. Shame on you.
Yeah.
Oh, they weren't quote unquote legal graves or like that made me so angry. My like social justice bubble was just rising up inside of me of like, oh, God bless America. This makes me so angry.
Yep.
It made me so mad. And then I was so sad for that couple that their entire retirement is ruined.
I know. It just fucking destroyed them.
Just destroyed. Because what do you expect them to do?
Mm-hmm.
It's like...
Yeah, they moved into what was supposed to be their dream home.
Yep.
Go to build a pool, which I'm sure they've been saving up for decades. And then this, and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, that was the thing too, is it's like they sounded like decent people who tried to do, that makes me think of White Lotus. Are they decent people?
Yes, Parker Posey's character.
Oh my God, I could listen to that voice of hers all day. but are they decent? Damn. But yeah, so they give up their whole life. I mean, it's just so sad.
Yep.
They have a great story, but that ain't worth shit. That doesn't pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. I hope that developer is, what I wished was that the neighborhood would get together, hold some sort of seance, and direct the spirits to where the developers live. If you could just like powerfully redirect spirits. Hey, it's not me. I didn't do it. It's that guy over there.
Yeah, totally.
How fucking great would that be? And then just that last Shannon and her husband, Chris. I mean, lucky for them that they were able to GTFO, but like the handprint on the mirror, that was, or at the bathroom.
Shower door,
Yeah, muddy footprints in the living room.
And that one really got me. It sounded, they didn't say single set, but it sounds like that.
Yeah.
Just a set of muddy footprints in the center of a room and no like trail of whoever made those footprints walking in and out of the room. That's unsettling.
The piece of that story that absolutely did me in was the 3 a.m. doorbell. Oh. Because I was thinking about this is recent. So, hello, Ring doorbells. Let me tell you something. Our doorbell rings at 3 a.m. It's not faulty wiring.
Oof.
I am going to lose my ever-loving shit.
Yes, that'd be terrifying.
There was a time that you were out of town that our alarm was going off, our house alarm. I somehow was sleeping through it, and I remember the cops were at our front door.
Oh, God, yeah, because I called them.
Yeah.
Or what? No,
they called
ADT
you.
They called me, and then I was trying to call you. That's right. And you were just out.
I was just out. I was out. I had my gummy. I went to bed. I snuggled up with the dogs.
Yep.
And it made me, the 3 a.m. doorbell made me think of that, because I was like, that's such a terrifying thing to wake up in the middle of the night, because they were ringing our doorbell.
Yeah.
It's so
disoriented.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally disorienting. And then, I mean, thankfully they were cops, and I was like, okay, whatever. But ring doorbell. If you heard your doorbell and then you looked at the footage and you saw a spirit, woof. Woof. Woof.
Okay. I have a few pictures, just 3. This first is the only photo I could find supposedly of the old Black Hope Cemetery, taken sometime in the early 20th century via unsolvedmysteries.fandom.com.
Okay.
And then this next one, this is the former supposedly haunted home of Ben and Jean Williams, so the second family I talked about, built over the Black Hope Cemetery, and this comes from an article in BaytownSun.com.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks like just a nice, standard, suburban house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it was new in the 80s,
Yeah.
And then finally, an aerial view of part of this area from DavidsonHomes.com. I don't think that's the developer of the initial, it's like there's still more homes in the area being built. But just to give you an idea of just a very normal, nice, peaceful looking area.
I'm confused.
Lots of trees.
I'm confused by that one giant building. What is that? It's got to be a church,
country
school?
club. Country club, I believe,
okay.
For a golf course behind it.
Because for a second, my brain stopped tracking your words, and I was like, hold on, this is an aerial shot of this neighborhood that they built, and that's somebody's house? No.
Yeah, looks like a country club. There's some homes up there kind of off to the side. And then there's other little, rows in the trees and stuff.
I always think of the theme song from Weeds, Tiny Boxes.
Oh, I never saw that.
Little boxes, little ticky-tacky, whatever. But that's when I see a planned development immediately. Mm-hmm. Even though I can't remember the words I hear. Okay. Well, that was a lot.
That was.
It was very intense. Thank you for sharing, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a Layla?
I do. I have a red Layla this week.
Red Layla.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Layla. Does she sniff? Does she smell? Does she
doesn't.
Sniff?
She doesn't. Some of these colors don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We could scent it,
We could. Spray something on it.
Yeah. Make it special. Okay. Well, I've got 3 stories, and I would love to get started.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's go. Over a decade ago, after realizing that college wasn't the path for me, I took a job in the trades. A buddy of mine and I decided to rent a house in our small Texas town to experience the so-called grown-up life / party life. We both had girlfriends, and we thought it would be fun to have them move in with us. Life was good at first. We worked, partied, ate, and drank, living the dream. Our house wasn't much. A solid wood front door gave way to a rundown interior with no central air conditioning in Texas. Ugh. The neighborhood was a little sketchy, but we didn't care. We enjoyed the walks around the block, chatting with the sweet old ladies who passed by. Most of the neighbors were a bit wary of us when we moved in, college-age kids moving in next door, ready to turn the place into a noisy mess, but we did our best to keep things low-key, at least at first. My favorite neighbor was the older Hispanic man who lived next door. He had about 10 goats, and one day, after watching my botched attempt to mow the backyard, he offered me a unique solution. In broken English, he suggested I let his goats into our yard to mow it for me. I figured, why not? I agreed in my best Spanish, and he gave me a thumbs up. The next thing I knew, he was herding his goats over and locking the gate behind him, proudly proclaiming, "Let's fatten them up." It was a strange and amusing sight. The goats did indeed take care of the yard in their own chaotic way. After a few weeks of enjoying each other's company, we decided to throw a small party. A handful of friends who were in the early stages of their careers but still acted like immature teenagers came over. As the night wore on, my girlfriend, who had had a little bit too much to drink, decided to retire to our bedroom. A few hours later, I followed her to bed. As I got in, she startled awake saying, "What are you doing?" She explained she could have sworn I'd already come to bed earlier and then left again. When I asked why she thought this, she mentioned that something had brushed against the bottom of her foot while she was lying there, something light, like a feather, tickling the arch of her foot. I assured her that I had been in the kitchen the whole time and no one had entered the room. We shrugged it off and went to sleep, dismissing it as just a weird moment. But a few nights later, it happened again. I was lying in bed, getting comfortable after work, when my girlfriend looked at me a little unnerved and said, "This is so strange. It felt like the same thing happened again. Something brushed against my foot. And this time it felt like it was a finger. I swear it felt like a fingernail scraped the heel of my foot all the way to my toes." I tried to calm her down, telling her it must have just been a dream, but she wasn't convinced, insisting that it wasn't. Still, we were both too tired to argue, so we let it go and fell asleep. The next day, I mentioned the two odd occurrences to my buddy. He seemed unbothered, but then he told me something that sent a chill down my spine. He had been woken up a few nights earlier by his girlfriend, who claimed to have seen the old man from next door walking up and down the street in the middle of the night. She thought it was strange, but what could they do? An old man walking around at night is no crime. After hearing that, things started to feel off. We all brushed it off, trying to ignore the creeping sense that something just wasn't right. After all, who would believe us about a feeling? It wasn't like there was anything we could prove. As the weeks went on, we couldn't shake the feeling that the old man's strange behavior and the odd happenings in the house weren't just coincidences. Something was off about that place, but it was hard to say exactly what. Maybe it was the goats, maybe it was the weird noises at night, or maybe it was the strange feeling that hung in the air every time the sun went down. Eventually, I convinced myself to move on from the strange occurrences and settled back into my normal routines. My buddy's girlfriend called me late one afternoon, sounding completely panicked. The sun hadn't quite begun to set, and there was still plenty of daylight outside. Her voice was trembling, thick with fear. She explained that she'd been unable to reach her boyfriend, and just moments before calling me, the old man who lived next door had been pacing in front of our yard, yelling at the house, "You took her! You took her!" She claimed that after this, he walked up to our solid wood front door and started banging on it with all of his strength. Alone in the house, she locked the deadbolt and looked out the window and saw the man up close. Terrified, she hid. I was only 2 blocks away, so I told her I'd be there in less than 30 seconds. I asked her to unlock the deadbolt when I arrived so I could check everything and make sure she was safe. As I turned the corner, our house came into view. She was already approaching the front door from the inside, and just as I was about to pull into the driveway, she screamed, causing me to slam on my brakes. Once she calmed down, she said that the old man was still there, banging on the door. I froze for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. "Are you sure?" I asked, because I'm sitting outside our house right now and I don't see anyone and I don't hear anything. I got out of the car and walked towards the door. As I approached, I heard nothing. The old man wasn't there. I opened the door, and as soon as I stepped inside, my friend's girlfriend screamed again, stumbling backwards. "What is going on?" I asked. "It's just me," I said, trying to reassure her. But before I could say another word, she shouted, "The banging! The screaming!" She was still hearing the old man's voice, even though I'd walked up to the house and hadn't seen or heard anything. Confused and unnerved, I tried to make sense of it. We waited for my buddy to come home, but neither he nor my girlfriend believed our story, and honestly, neither did I at first. It was one of those things that sounded too unbelievable to be true. How could one person hear something while the other, standing just a few feet away, heard nothing? A week later, the mystery deepened. We saw the family of the old man moving things out of his house. His daughter was there, loading up the goats to sell them and driving away in an old car with a for sale sign in it. Naturally, I went over to ask if everything was all right. She looked at me with a solemn expression. "No," she said. "The old man passed away about a month ago. He went peacefully in his sleep. But that's not to say he didn't leave some demons behind." Her words struck me. I thought it was odd for someone to speak that way about their deceased parent, especially after he had seemed like such a lonely but kind man. But I tried to push it out of my mind. After all, it's just like a weird thing to say. Or so I thought. Life went on. Work, home, eat, sleep, repeat. Yet the strange events stayed with me. The sound of the old man's voice screaming, "You took her!" and the bizarre banging on the door. Well, I couldn't quite shake the feeling that something wasn't right. And then one evening, things grew even stranger. My buddy and I had just finished dinner, and we were lounging in the kitchen, chatting as usual. When we were finally too tired to stay awake, we headed to our rooms. I heard him turn on the shower, figuring he'd be quick, but after 20, 30, even 40 minutes, the sound of running water persisted. Curious, I went to go check on him, but as I stepped into the hallway, I nearly ran into him. Both of us jumped, surprised. "I thought you were in the shower," we said in unison. "I wasn't," he replied, towel in hand. At first, we thought it might have been one of the girls using the other bathroom. We checked our rooms, but both girls were already in bed. And that's when it hit us. Neither of us had heard the shower running from the bathroom near our bedrooms. We walked down the hallway to the other restroom, and sure enough, the shower was still running. The problem? This bathroom was almost unusable. The landlord had warned us that it was poorly maintained. No drywall, broken tiles on the floor, and a view straight into the attic space from the shower. There was no way anyone should have been in there, much less taking a shower. We tried the door. It was locked. We couldn't figure out who would have locked themselves inside. Wondering if maybe like a homeless person had just gotten in, we discussed our options. Breaking down the door? Calling the landlord? Or simply waiting to see if the situation resolved itself? Just as my buddy was dialing the landlord, I tried the handle one more time. And to my shock, it turned. With growing apprehension, we pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, and a thick cloud of steam poured out from the small gap between the door and the frame. I stepped inside, quickly flipping on the light switch, but when we looked around, there was no one in the bathroom. The shower was off, though the water had clearly been running. We didn't know what to think, and after a long silence, we agreed to go to bed and revisit the strange events the next day. The next evening, we were sitting outside, talking about what had happened, when we saw the old man's daughter pull up to her father's house. She looked tired, but her face softened when she saw us. We decided to walk over and check on her, maybe offer her some comfort about her father's passing. As we sat at her kitchen table, she casually mentioned something that made my blood run cold. She shared, "My father mourned the loss of my mother throughout the years. It was extremely hard for him to cope with the loss of his beloved wife and his child. Mother was delivering in the bathtub, which was common back then. After her death, my father barricaded himself in the bathroom. It sounded like war had erupted behind that locked door. He made us other children promise to never step foot in there ever again." Then, almost in a trance-like state, she continued, "You must have noticed your door creaks when you go inside," she said. "My father built that door, and ours, years ago. Ours used to creak every time we came home from school." I looked at her, confused. She smiled sadly. "That door," she continued, "was built from the strongest wood he could find. He always said it was to protect us no matter what side of the door we were on." Thank you for all of the stories and entertainment over the years. There's so much I'd like to say, but I'll condense it. From listening to your stories and your conversations together, I have learned so many things. Communication with my wife and kids, life overall, and seeing you two step out and build out and enjoy the things you do lifts my spirit so much. I feel like I found family with you, and I can't express how much your energy and love for all you do means to us. I feel I speak for the community when I say thank you.
Aw. That's so nice.
So nice. I know I don't always keep in like the little accolades, but that one was so sweet.
Yeah. Okay, so couple things.
Yes.
So many things.
So many things. Such a strange story.
Really creepy. But the strong wood to protect you from like either side, I mean, that's like a mystery a little bit, right? Like he doesn't, the storyteller there, the narrator doesn't know exactly what he was trying to protect his daughter from.
Yeah, so what I took away from it, I'm glad that you brought that up, so thanks for asking.
Yeah.
What I took away from it is that, it sounds like her dad, who's now deceased, was like a handyman or a contractor.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he built the front door to both his own house and then this neighboring house that our fan lived in. And so it's just so interesting that after he passes, these kids renting this house, living next door to the old man's house, have this connection with the daughter, and she just randomly brings up the door. Like, and I find it to be especially bizarre because previously in the story, we hear about the friend's girlfriend,
right. I wonder if
the
he
old
lived in that
man.
house. I wonder if he lived next door for a while or something.
I don't know. Or
she
maybe
did.
he was just confused or lost.
Yeah.
Like his spirit is hanging around. And to me, it felt like he was trying to find his way back to his wife that he had lost in the bathroom while giving birth.
Yeah, that's what made me wonder if he lived there, the bathroom thing, because he barricaded himself in the bathroom, the daughter said.
Yeah.
And then the bathroom in the house that the narrator lived in.
Yeah.
With that, by the way, so creepy to be able to see into the attic from the shower.
I mean, I don't know how many like shitty rundown houses you've ever showered in, but like I've definitely been in like some weird where I'm like, what am I doing with my life that I'm in this bathroom right now?
Yeah. I have a few as well. Definitely lived in a few when I was younger.
Yeah.
But like, that's creepy though. It's just that would unnerve me seeing it. But I'm like, oh, is that the bathroom where?
Yeah, maybe.
His wife. Like,
I don't. It's hard to know.
Yeah, exactly. I almost got the feeling that he might have lived there. And then the big thing I wondered, timeline wise, it might not be, something that was shared. So when the narrator first meets the guy next door who has the goats that come and I'm like, was he already dead?
I know. I wondered the same thing. We don't have a very clear timeline, so
I kind of like in this story because it makes it mysterious in a good way.
I know. I thought the same thing too. It's part of the reason I included it because it does leave, as much as I hate unanswered questions, it leaves a lot to the imagination.
Yeah. Part of that story, or a lot of that story, actually, and I mean this in the best possible way, is like a fever dreamish quality where like it's just fucking weird. Like
it's confusing.
Like the girl who keeps hearing the knocking, his friend's girlfriend.
Yes.
After he's already there, I'm like, that gave me the chills. That there was just a lot of it where I'm like, what the fuck? Like in a good way.
Yeah. And I think too, like maybe part of what makes the story a little bit unnerving, confusing, a little hard to track is also the time in this person's life. It's like in your 20s.
Oh, totally.
When you're
it's
just
a
like
little chaotic.
work, party, relationships, trying to figure out your path. So it's like I felt very relatable. I felt the story felt very relatable because I was like, like your 20s are a fucking train wreck. I mean, if you do it right.
Yep, exactly.
So it's just, it was a creepy story, and I loved the way it was told.
Yeah. Yep, that was good.
Yes. All right. Well, are you ready to hop into another one?
I am.
Okay, let's go. Dear Spoopy Queen and Dan, I've been listening since the beginning of 2024 when a waitress at my favorite breakfast place overheard my friend and I mention child orgies. And we quickly needed to give her more context. We'd been discussing books we'd recently read and got on the topic about how many Stephen King books like It have effed up endings. She laughed and told us about how she loves everything spooky and then recommended your podcast.
Sweet.
I've been hooked ever since. Like, minorly obsessed hooked. I already own the blankets, the sweatshirts, and the books. You've been my companions as I work from home alone and need someone to interact with besides my dog, Oliver.
Aw, yay.
This is a short and not so sweet one that has always stuck with me as a question mark on if it was supernatural spooky or single woman traveling alone and men sometimes suck spooky. I was going on my first solo weekend away trip about a year into my first out-of-college career job. I traveled quite a bit in my new position and finally plucked up the courage to tack on personal travel plans to a work trip. My flight arrived in Charleston, South Carolina around 1 a.m., and I'd packed light so I could bypass the infuriating luggage claim and get away from people as soon as possible. I made it to the taxi line just as a lone 13-passenger van taxi pulled up. There was a larger group making their way towards us, and I naively assumed they would be joining me in this giant-ass car. So I was surprised to see the driver shut the door behind me when I turned to ask them if they were going downtown too. I internally scolded myself for thinking like such a green traveler and looked around at all the empty seats while settling into the front passenger row and closest to the sliding door. You know, escape routes, and wanting to keep an eye on the road and the male driver's movements. What can I say? I was 22, tired as hell, and a nervous Nelly being acutely aware that I could be murdered on the side of the road in a city where nobody knew me. The driver only spoke to me to get my destination address, then the car quickly fell silent beside some subdued radio background music that crackled with static. I go against the Nebraskan stereotype of wanting to talk to all strangers and was very okay with the silence. I thought through my weekend plans as I watched the empty highway wind back and forth ahead of us with a thick fog blanketing the middle of the road and all of its surroundings. It briefly came to me that this was a mildly creepy scene for 1 a.m. when a drawn-out whisper filled the van. Every syllable was extended, and there was an extra long trail at the end. My eyes bulged, and my whole body froze. What the actual fuck? I quickly glanced over at the driver, and he was acting like nothing had happened. His eyes were still fixed on the road ahead, and his fingers occasionally tapped along to the quiet radio. Wanting to avoid any sudden movements, I slyly opened Google Maps on my phone to make sure he was actually driving me towards the hotel and not an abandoned field where he'd hide my body. Confirmed. Still on track. All right, maybe he's just hitting on me in the creepiest way possible. I'm sure I had full-on crazy eyes as he continued driving, and I constantly shifted my eyes between the phone map and the driver's face and then the road ahead of us. Minutes crept by, and my body could not relax. Then, "You're beautiful." The breathy male whisper filled my head again, and I'm positive this time the driver's mouth did not fucking move. It didn't even sound like it had come from the front seat, but rather somehow all around me. This is how I die. This is how I die. Oh my God, this is how I die. I just kept repeating to myself over and over. Silence settled back in, and the remaining 15 minutes felt like hours. My ears strained for any hint of breathing behind me, and my eyes burned with dryness as I barely dared to blink while monitoring the blue arrow on my phone as it moved closer and closer to the destination. We finally pulled up to the hotel, and I practically jumped out of the car. I watched the driver's every movement like a hawk. He didn't even act odd at all. I paid. He briefly said thank you and to have a nice night, and his facial expressions didn't indicate any interest besides moving on to his next fare. And that was it. The rest of the weekend went fine, and it didn't stop me from taking any other solo trips over the next 10 years. Thank you both for keeping me company and providing so many spooks that make me think. Hope you keep the podcast going for many more years. Hillary.
Hillary, that is a good, quick little creepy story.
You're beautiful.
I like that Hillary mentioned the second time she heard that, paying attention to the driver, like extra close attention,
Yes.
just to make sure, like, are you doing this? God, that made me think, because I assume, like, or maybe I missed it. She might have said, but she's the only person at 1 a.m. in this van to the hotel.
Yes, and like I can just picture it.
Yeah.
It was a cab. Initially, I was thinking like the hotel shuttle.
I thought that's what I thought she said van.
Well, it's a 13-passenger van. So, but it's a taxi, not the hotel shuttle. So you're picturing the right thing, but you did what I did, and I mashed them together.
So I've been in so many vans, like little shuttles.
Totally. Like, I like it when it's like the Radisson Inn, and it's like, we have hot cookies for you. And then they never do. I've never gotten the cookie.
Oh, man, now I'm thinking of hotel cookies. There was, sorry, before I move forward, DoubleTree. The DoubleTree hotel chain, I think they're still around. They're not like everywhere, but they have the best cookies.
Okay.
Like chocolate chip and some kind of nut, maybe walnut. But I'm like, oh my God. And they would be warm and they would have them. And it's like the littlest thing. But when you've flown 2 or 3 flights, these connections, and you get in and you're tired and you're exhausted and you want to go to bed and you get a nice little warm cookie handed to you. It's so good. But
you're so cute. I love this guy.
Yes, I love you. But that thing of, that you're beautiful, like hearing that would be so disturbing by yourself. And then it made me flash on that practical joke I did that I've talked about a million times, but with Kyler years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it would be messed up. But if you were just like a sick sense of humor and you wanted to mess with some passengers,
oh my God,
put a little Bluetooth speaker in your taxi or whatever.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
You and Kyler, later this summer, you're going to drive him cross country back to school.
Oh my God, I have to remember it.
We have to do it. You are beautiful. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then you have to pretend like you don't hear it. Okay, fans, listen, Kyler doesn't listen to the show. So we have a little bit of time. Dan and Kyler will be driving cross country back to Kyler's college sometime in August. So let's all collectively work together. Let's all be in on this. What would be some great ways that Dan can absolutely scare the shit out of Kyler?
Without making him drive off the road and killing us both.
This is true. Yep. This is true. Yes. It has to be like daytime. I mean, even better.
I should be driving when I do it.
Yes. And controlling it with your phone. Something. Yeah. But then also, if you can manage to make it all the way back to the East Coast without like telling him what's happening, it would be so great if like whatever little device, if that's what you end up with, you like stash it in his stuff. So you're gone and it's still happening to him at school.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Okay. All right, fans. Robert's, Annabelle's, Creeps and Peepers, we've got to make this happen.
But that was a great story, Hillary. And yeah, I would be also freaked out.
Yeah, 100%.
But I'm glad you went on solo trips after that. And we're like, whatever, that was an anomaly. But I'm gonna keep going.
And also just like reminder, travelers, whether you're traveling alone, like as in you're an individual who doesn't have a partner who's like checking on you or whatever, but wherever you are, whatever you're doing, there are so many ways to share your location. If you're an iPhone user, there's different apps, and there is just so much comfort in having the knowledge that somebody else is checking your location every so often.
Yeah, 100%.
So just saying.
Yep.
All right. One more?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. Heyo, STD team. I want to start off by saying that I've been a fan of STD from its conception.
Yes.
And a fan of TimeSuck for longer.
Thank you.
A teacher turned me on to TimeSuck about 5 years ago. I'm 18, by the way. That being said, he was my all-time favorite teacher.
Cool teacher.
I have wanted to write in for a very long time, but I didn't think that this would be it out of all the things. When I heard this week, I don't know which week they're referring to, episode, however, I knew that I had to write in. It satisfies all of Lynze's irkings with seance stories. Enough with the pleasantries, on to my story. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was having a holiday dinner at my grandma's house. It was a typical every relative and their second cousin kind of get-together with probably 50 people in a relatively small house. So, as space fundamentally works, not everyone could fit in the house, causing some people to spill out onto the front porch and into the yard. As for the house, it sits on 3 acres in bumfuck southern Illinois. It had a large wraparound front porch that encompasses the side of 2 living rooms and a kitchen. As you walk in the front door, you enter one of the living rooms. In an open walkway is the kitchen to your left, and as you walk in the door. On the left wall is another door to another living space and an open hallway. Down the hallway, there's a bedroom and a bathroom, then the master bedroom with an extra bath attached. At the end of the hallway is the washer and dryer on a landing about 6 by 6 that leads to a door that opens into the garage. Now, with all of that out of the way, we can head back to this Thanksgiving dinner. Little me was apparently quite hungry for a popsicle, and everyone was too busy to get me one out of the garage freezer. So I did the sensible thing and walked my little butt out there to retrieve myself a popsicle. After notifying my mother of my adventure to come, I headed down the hallway to the garage. Evidently, I had no issue retrieving my frozen flavor stick, but as I walked back up into the main living room, my grandma noticed I looked distraught. It wasn't normal for me to get upset about things, even as a kid, so my grandma immediately took concern and asked me what was wrong. I told her there was a mean man downstairs. Curious about which one of my relatives I was calling mean, she pressed me for their appearance. I told her that he looked like he was old, with a big bushy beard and overalls. He was sitting in a wooden rocking chair down on the platform that holds the washer and dryer. My grandma has always believed in the paranormal, so she wasn't entirely too concerned with my answer. Apparently, this kind of thing has happened in this house before, but never a full apparition of a person. She sent me on my way after cutting open my popsicle, assuring me that she would take care of it. Now seems like a good time to mention that there is not a rocking chair in the entire house, and we definitely don't have any old relatives with gray beards who wear overalls. Later that night, my parents were giving me a bath when they asked me who I saw in the garage. I told them with a straight voice, "His name is Bill." "Is Bill someone you know from school?" "No." "Is he your friend?" "No." "Is he nice?" "No, he's mean." "Well then, how do you know him?" "I met him downstairs." "Do you know who he is?" "His name is Bill. He's dead." From retellings of the sequence of events, I gather that I was completely calm and nonchalant in the way that only kids can be. The thing that really gets me about it is that I had no preconceived notions of death or ghosts. Nobody had died in our family at that point in my life. Both of my parents are non-believers, and they both admitted that the story shook them to their core and made them question what they did believe. My grandma, on the other hand, was all in on it. She wanted to know who Bill was. She held seances and used Ouija boards to try to find out who he was in life, to no avail. She thought maybe she could find better answers in a more physical way, so she sought out old land records. It turns out that the land that the house was built on was settled by a man with no wife or kids who was given a chunk of property by the government to settle. Even from 200 years ago, the records state very clearly that the man who received the land was named Bill.
Wow.
Bill had built a house from the ground up on that property with nothing but a horse and a few saws. Still not satisfied, my grandma dug even deeper into Bill, only to find out that he had been killed while falling a tree to make a rocking chair. There's no way to tell where on the property he died, but given that there are multiple houses within a mile, mine included, I think it's safe to assume that Bill died in that very place, possibly trying to cut down one of the large oaks in our backyard. By the looks of it, it seems that Bill did end up finishing his chair in the afterlife. The story has been told to me by a lot of different people, a lot of different times in my family, and everyone has a little variation in the story, like prior experiences in the house, who talked to me first, but essentially everyone tells the same bones of the story. I walked downstairs, came back up with a popsicle and a terrified face, talked to my grandma, who talked to my parents, who talked to me. The one thing they all said and all emphasized was the fact that I was very firm in knowing that his name was Bill and that I had a very nonchalant attitude about it the entire time, as if I was telling them about something that had happened that day at school. To this day, I still notice small things, but nothing as big or important as that. It's a story that I like to break out when my friends and I are out on long drives at night in the pitch black. People always seem to get creeped out with this story and repeatedly ask me to retell it to their friends. So I figured, why not share it with the Scared to Death family? Zach.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah, I love the details at the end about obviously the guy being named Bill, who built like the original homesteader or person who built a house and was on the property, and then the whole connection with the rocking chair. What a weird way to die. Like,
I love his grandma.
And I love the grandma. And I love the grandma's house. I was like, I want to see this house. When he was describing the big wraparound porch, and it sounds huge with like, what, more than one living room?
Yeah.
And just, I'm like, ooh, and like out in the country on 3 acres. I'm like, where is this house and what does it look like?
It's in Illinois.
I mean, Illinois, but I'm like,
I know,
but it sounds cool. It sounds like an awesome grandma house.
Yes, exactly. I know. What is it about certain houses that you just like, you can drive through any neighborhood and you're like, a grandma lives there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like always so obvious.
Yeah. I can see you and I possibly, I mean, we talk about many different futures, but in one version, having like a cool, bigger, older house that we actually have time to like care for.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you see those people that really kind of like fall in love with their home.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, a fair amount of work, but it's also really like unique and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, how some people get into restoring an old building or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, that'd be pretty cool.
Today,
Depending on what it is, yeah.
I know. Today, I just want to tell you, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, you want to relax.
No, it's not even that. It's that today we're recording at night, but earlier today, as the sun was hiding behind the clouds, I was like, okay, now's my moment to put out our outdoor furniture. You're just like a couple chairs, rug, a couple poofs. Yeah. Ladies, you know all about the poofs. My back hurts so bad that I'm like, no, I'm not restoring anything.
Totally. Yeah.
But I totally get it.
In a moment, I'm like,
no, I know. You have to follow Dave and Chris on Instagram. Their house is really cool.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
You want to thank some Annabelles?
I do. Thank you. Big thanks to all of our Annabelles who have made another year of scholarships possible. Janelle Smith, Bethany Sivers, Katrina Frazier, Justice Moore, Brian Keller, Natasha Robbins, Teddy Bear, Donna Pattinson, and Andrew Racina. Yeah, we're going to go with that.
Awesome. I'd like to thank the following Annabelles. Billy Smith. Man, that is like a name where I'm like, okay, I feel so confident about saying Billy Smith.
If you screwed that up, I would be so embarrassed
Bill
for
I.
you.
Smythe. I also like to thank Patrick Carroll, Hazel Kraus, Samwise Inks, Pat. That's another one. I better not mess up. P-A-T. Kaylin Andrews, Jake, another one.
You're crushing it.
River Runs Through It.
Cute.
It makes me wish I was like learning to fly fish. Jonathan Lawrence and Mark Haberak.
Awesome. And then I have just a few spoopy shout outs to Alina from Alina. Happy birthday to myself. Keep your head up. It will all be okay. Alina sent us a great email just talking about how she's been like beyond burnt out, like a next level burnout.
Yeah.
And she is stepping away from her job. And that's a really hard but very brave thing to do. So congrats. And you will be okay. To Caleb from Lexi, happy anniversary. Here's to many more years of listening to spooky podcasts together. And then I just wanted to say, if you guys are sending in your spooky shout outs, we do record in advance. So please,
and we're trying to record further in advance right now.
Yeah, we're trying to build out a little cushion for ourselves so that, God forbid, we get sick or we just, I don't know, want to take a week off of recording. We can. So we're working very hard on that. So if you are sending in a spoopy shout out, the time frame is like 6 to 8 weeks. So if you know you want to shout out on December 1st, you should be emailing me like in October.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, exactly.
So I just wanted to give a little note because mostly it's my own personal, like, I hate disappointing people.
Yeah.
So when people are like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, oh, we already recorded that show. I'm so sorry.
Yep.
And no one's been rude, but I feel terrible.
Yeah. And that's our show.
That's our show.
Thank you for continuing to send in your personal tales of terror to mystory@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. You can email us for everything else at info@scaredtodeathpodcast.com. Thank you again to Logan Keith, scoring today's show, to Heather Rylander, still organizing the My Story emails, to book editor Drew Atana, still polishing, preparing listener stories for book number 6. I was able to dig up both stories I shared tonight. We are on Facebook and Instagram, where we post pics that accompany episodes and more at Scared to Death Podcast. We also have a private Facebook group, Creeps and Peepers, full of fellow horror lovers. Big thank you to the All Seen Eyes, the Creeps and Peepers moderators. Thanks for making our online community such a fun and welcoming place for so many. Enjoy your nightmares, Creeps and Peepers. Hope you were scared to death.
Bye.
If spirits threaten me in this place, fight water by water and fire by fire. Banish their souls into nothingness and remove their powers until the last trace. Let these evil beings flee through time and space. Evil may pass through, but hath no home here within, scared to death.
Mad Magic Productions.